What is up, you little freaks? Let's cut the chit-chat, huh? Today we're talking about friend. Anyone else notice how this fuck-ass cat strolled into our lives one day and just appropriated like half of the symbology that we've associated with Gaster for years? What was up with that? That was weird, right? Like smiles and smile.og and the bunker and hell and being the guy who drove Spampton and Jevil insane and Shadow Crystals. That's all friends now. That belongs to the fuck-ass cat. But something that we gotta remember is that friend is and has always been part of the device. And I think I figured out exactly how friend relates to the device. And if you don't know what I mean by device, I'll get to that eventually. But ladies, gentlemen, and everyone else, this is what I'm calling cat and mouse theory. And you may be thinking to yourself, oh Cammy, what a quaint thumbnail. You've illustrated friend as the cat and yourself as the mouse. How creative. But you've fallen directly into my fucking trap and you didn't even know it. Because, first of all, those aren't mouse pajamas, they're bear pajamas. Little Cammy lore for you. But second of all, I'm not the mouse in this picture. The mouse is what's holding me up. You starting to get it? Just a taste of what's inside my twisted fucking mind. But yeah, throwing my conclusion at you here early, but let's work our way there. First, let's talk about the device. Oh, and if you like what I'm doing here and you want to see more, please remember to subscribe and... Did I say scribe? Subscribe and hit the bell and hype and all the other YouTube shit. You know what I'm talking about. Turns out I'm supposed to say this at the beginning instead of at the end when everyone's already left. Imagine that. Thank you. Mwah. So I used to just kind of assume that people who watched my videos had like a base knowledge of device theory, but my shareholders have... Ooh. Voice crack, hello. But my shareholders have informed me that it's kind of unreasonable to expect my audience to have done a minimum 10 hours of required watching to watch my videos. So I'm gonna do my best here to give as succinct as possible of a rundown as I can of device theory to give you the minimum knowledge required. And you guys gotta promise me, next time you have 10 hours free, sit your ass down and give Molly your attention. They deserve it. So, at the very bare minimum, what is device theory? It's a theory that largely has to do with the way assets are named inside the code of Deltarune. There are many different kinds of assets that GameMaker uses, but device theory narrows it down to 4 relevant ones: sprites, sounds, rooms, and objects. It's not necessary that you understand what these things all are, it's just necessary that you understand how Toby names them. And he names them exactly how, like, a normal fucking person would name them. I'll throw them up on screen here. As you can see, they're all just shortened versions of the word that they are. Sprite gets shortened to SPR, sound gets shortened to SND, and so on. This is how the vast majority of Deltarune is coded. Because that's like the thing that's like a normal thing to do, is to like code your game like a normal person. Except... there is a collection of files that are specifically not coded like this. These files specifically are all the files that have to do with the chapter select screen, the save select screen, the cutscenes where they show you the logo, the Goner Maker sequence, the dog check room, the game over screens, and one aforementioned fuck-ass cat. All the files having to do with these things are both all in uppercase and use completely different naming conventions. Everything that would otherwise be named a sprite is named image. Sounds become audio. Rooms become places. And objects become processes, or more often, devices. Now, I'm not a programmer, but as far as I know, there is no programming reason to do this. It would only serve to confuse and create extra work for yourself. However, Toby knows that people love to dig into his games. For example, when Undertale first released, he left a spooky audio message in the files asking people not to share secret details about the game through data mining. And when people did anyways, obviously, he patched the game and replaced that message with just laughing. So even though a poor, sparkly-eyed child Toby thought that maybe he could get away with no one data mining Undertale, he seems to be designing Deltarune knowing that it's going to happen no matter what. And the person in the unused text that's only accessible through data mining seems to be proof of that. So what do we think all these conspicuously named files communicate exactly? It's some Gaster bullshit, obviously. But like, actually, all these files are named in all caps, and all caps is obviously the way Gaster's known to speak. The files have to do with many of the places Gaster speaks to us, including the Goner Maker sequence, the Chapter 1 Game Over screen, and the Chapter 1 File Select screen. And a lot of you might not have been here for this, but when the first demo of Deltarune came out, it was heavily implied that Gaster himself was the man giving it to us. Aside from the Twitter account role-playing as him, the program itself wasn't called Deltarune, it was called survey_program in all caps, name very similar to the files. The file version was 0.6.6.6, and you had to accept an agreement before starting the game that said, in all caps, you accept everything that will happen from now on. So the device theory reaches the conclusion that Gaster is the one who programmed and named these files. But if you'll remember, these files are only found in a particular few places and not throughout the whole game. And I'll list them one more time for you. The chapter select, the file select, the logo cutscenes, the Goner Maker, the dog check screen, the game over screens, and friend. And in case you're not familiar, the dog check screen is basically like a failsafe screen. It only shows up if something's gone wrong with the game's programming, or if you've fucked with the game's programming somehow. But anyways, the device theory points out that all of the stuff Gaster is programmed here is outside of the actual world of Deltarune. It's all menus, the character creator, the save menu, the chapter select. When we open Deltarune on our computer, we are opening Gaster's program. And Gaster's program is what allows us to connect to the world of Deltarune. And if we get a game over, then we're booted out of it momentarily. Now, Gaster's program, the one that allows us to connect to him, us to connect to the world of Deltarune, and possibly him to connect to the world of Deltarune, has been nicknamed the device. That's why it's called the device theory. Personally, I think it's kind of a misnomer. I mean, I don't want to step on any toes here, but like, after refreshing myself on the theory, I've found out that assets of the program are called devices, right? Device_friend is a device. And that device is part of Gaster's program. But I guess program theory doesn't sound as cool, I don't know. Whatever. Sorry, Molly, I didn't mean it, Molly. Please don't be mad at me, Molly.
Huh?
Wait. Was that Andrew Cunningham? Anyhow, I will be referring to the program as the device, just not to get our signals mixed up here. But here's where my interpretation is going to divert just a little bit from the official device theory. As I understand it, the theory proposes that the Gaster we're talking to is the one from Undertale who's been shattered already. So despite the fact that we're talking to him on a computer program, he's like metaphysically shattered across space and time. I actually ended up reaching out to Molly on this for clarification, and she offered a few explanations for it. She says she's torn, but thinks that once we meet Gaster, he's got to have some sort of tangible form. Maybe despite being shattered, he can still take form if necessary, or maybe he's like uploaded himself into the device somehow. But personally, I think that if I'm sitting at my computer using a program Gaster programmed to access the world of Deltarune, and he's talking to me using that program, I think his ass is sitting at a computer doing the same thing. I mean, think about it. He needs a computer to program, right? Someone had to type in all those file names. And not only that, but the Chapter 1 file select screen, it's made to look like an old computer, and we've been over this. Like, how is Gaster running this on a computer if he's not if his mind and soul have been irrevocably shattered across the multiverse, huh? And one last piece of evidence that I don't know if anyone else has brought up before, but I think is kind of interesting. Why isn't Gaster talking to us in Wingdings? You know, the fucking font that he's famous for being named after and speaking in? I think it's because he's not speaking to us, he's typing to us. Because you can hear Gaster's voice blip when you hear him talk in Undertale. In Entry 17, you see the Wingdings and you hear him speak. You might be thinking, wait, that's a lab entry, that's not him speaking, but Alfie's lab entries don't have her voice blips. Why would Gaster's entry have voice blips and Alfie's not? Probably because Gaster's is a voice recording, which is why we can hear Gaster speak and also hear smile.og playing in the background. Meanwhile, Gaster speaks to us in Deltarune, no voice blips and no wingdings. Unk is typing to us because if he hopped on voice chat, we wouldn't know what the fuck he was saying. So, all this to say, I'm not here to argue about which Gaster is talking to us. It could be Undertale, it could be Deltarune. Maybe when he jumped in the core, he had like a Chromebook on him and that got shattered with him, I don't know. But for the rest of this theory to work, I need you to understand that just like us, Gaster is accessing Deltarune on a device called a computer. Wow, okay, another video, another 10 minutes of recapping other people's theories. One of these days I just gotta make a theory normies can understand, man. Alright, so in the last section I was talking about how all the device files are relevant to the space outside of the game, right? But you probably noticed that I left out the one glaring exception. All of the stuff that Gaster programmed lies outside of the world of Deltarune except for the fuck-ass cat that the video's about. Yes, device_friend is such a bizarre pattern breaker, and first and foremost tells us something really interesting about the device. Despite the fact that almost everything Gaster has programmed has remained outside of Deltarune's world, doesn't mean everything that he's programmed has to. Because friend is undeniably a component of the device, and friend is undeniably in Deltarune's world. But before we talk about the cat, let's talk about the mouse. Yes, I believe that the Tail of Hell is Gaster's computer mouse. Now, I'm not going to waste your time explaining friend and the Tail of Hell in this video, just because, you know, it's current year. If you're in the Deltarune theory scene right now, you know what I'm talking about. I could ask my fucking grandma which Deltarune character has the Tail of Hell, and she'd be like, friend, the cat with the pointed tail. The world-revolving big shot penumbra phantasm always been on Papyrus Night. But yes, the widely assumed fanon is that the Tail of Hell belongs to friend. And while I personally think it's a little more debatable than everyone else seems to think, let's assume it's true for now. And if friend is part of the device, and the Tail of Hell is attached to friend, then the Tail of Hell is part of the device too. Now let's take a look at this damn tail. Just right off the bat, look at the shape of that thing. That is the shape of a computer mouse, plain and simple. It's missing like a little stem, yeah, but don't act like you've never seen a mouse like that before. And maybe you're thinking to yourself, well hey, mice? Computer mice? Computer mice don't have trails of circles behind them, dumbass. And normally they don't, yeah, but I can bet you've seen at least one before that does. And you've seen it in this fucking video game. May I introduce you to the Mic Room, in which you get a mouse with a pointer at the end connected by a trail of circles to a character at the other end, which, may I remind you, is given to you in a room just fucking plastered in references to friend. Friend on the door. Pluie is dressed up as friend. Cat statues everywhere. Pink and yellow bomb. Pink and yellow attacks. Friend literally shows up in the Bat-Tat minigame. Is it so crazy to think that maybe the way the mouse is presented, or maybe the fact that Mike uses the mouse at all, is also a foreshadow to friend? Not to mention Pluie's tail. Pluie's tail has a little mouth on it. Why put this here? The other mics seem like such obvious send-ups to fan theories, right? Bat-Tat is, what if Mike was Tenna? What if Mike was the main antagonist of the chapter? He was the TV show host. Jongler is, what if Mike is friend inside me? What if he's a cowboy? Pluie is, what if Mike is friend? And also, he has like a tail with a mouth on it. No one was theorizing about what if Mike has a tail with a mouth on it. That is a completely new detail. This only makes sense to add if this is a quality that friend actually has. So if Pluie's tail is a separate being from them, maybe that means friend's tail is a separate being from them. Because if the Tail of Hell is Gaster's mouse, he would be controlling it independently of friend. I think. That's what my mind's. That's how I'm operating, okay? And I fear that maybe this theory is just going to seem too simple to a lot of you, and I get it. Because truthfully, the evidence doesn't go a lot further than that. But to me it just clicks into place so well because it fixes so many incongruities I was seeing. Like what I was talking about in the intro, how Friend just came in and co-opted all the Gaster symbology. I mean, it's not really that deep, but it is kind of weird how for 10 years Gaster was the 666 guy, the one to associate with Satan and hell, right? Then in chapter 4 we get this prophecy. They'll hear the ring of heaven's call, they'll see the tail of hell take crawl, framed together in the same room like they're opposing forces. On one side, the angel in favor of the prophecy, the tale that must be followed. The other side against the prophecy, the tale which must not be followed. But instead of Gaster, the guy who we've been comparing to Satan all this time, it's like the cat that like works for Gaster, I guess? Forgive me if I'm blanking here, but if we assume Friend isn't the tale of hell, does he even have any other direct ties to hell or demons? Doesn't it just feel so much cleaner if the tale of hell is just representative of Gaster himself? After all, Gaster seems to be interested in changing the prophecy, leading you astray from the angel's prophecy. He wants to create a new future together, his Deltarune. Anyway, that's what I think. I realize I might just be splitting hairs here because in the end the mouse is still connected to Friend, so what's the difference? And what is the purpose of making them separate, right? And why is Friend a cat? We haven't really touched on that. But I wouldn't bring that up if I wasn't gonna talk about it next. I don't know what that voice was. So, full transparency here. The tale of hell is a mouse theory came first. But once I had that theory, there was like this 5-legged cat in the room begging me to address it. I had to ask myself, if the tale of hell was a mouse, part of a computer as part of the device, and we know for sure because of the file names that Friend is part of the device too, then what is he? Is he anything? And believe me, I'm aware of the conversations surrounding Friend and RNG. I think it's possible that maybe he could be like a random number generator as part of the device or something. I think that'd be kind of cool. But the form of the tale of hell played such a big part in what I thought it was, the shape of it, right? What I wanted an answer to was why Friend was a cat. So I did some research, and I think I found something. Friend is a cat command, or at least a sort of abstract representation of one. Now, before I get into it, I want to lay something out there. I think I can speak for everyone when I say I hate clicking on a YouTube video about something I love and listening to some dumbass who skimmed a Wikipedia page misinforming the masses about one of my special interests. So Linux users, if I'm spouting some bullshit, come for me in the comments. That being said, Linux is an operating system for nerds. If you don't know what an operating system is, it's like Windows or like Mac OS, but it's a lot less user-friendly, so its core audience is like software developers and programmers. And you do a lot of navigating in Linux by typing in commands. And just by basically Googling what the word cat could have to do with computers, I discovered the cat command. And cat commands in Linux have a few uses. Cat is a shortening of the word concatenate, which means to chain things together, which is what the command is actually made to do. But I started watching tutorials on cat commands, and I started noticing a pattern. All these dudes saying, yeah, so here are the complicated things you can do with a cat command, but if you're a regular Linux user like me, by far the most common use you're going to get out of the cat command is just to view files. To easily view a text file in your Linux system, you type in cat and then the text file and it brings it right up. You view it, that's the most convenient way to view a file. Viewing, you say? Cats are most often used for viewing files in this operating system. How interesting, how quaint, that oftentimes the most often thing we see Friend doing in Deltarune is simply viewing us from afar, viewing us from the shadows. Isn't that interesting? And I'm not saying this is one-to-one, right? Friend is a being with autonomy in Deltarune's world, I'm pretty sure, and this is just a command you type into a keyboard. I'm just saying that Friend could be like an abstraction of this concept, right? That he is how Gaster views us, that Gaster maybe sees through his eyes even. Because it seems like Gaster always has eyes on us, otherwise how could he have seen what we were doing during the night fight? So maybe friend is always watching us, you know? Like not just when we see him, but always watching us from the shadows, and that's how Gaster is always able to see us. And the cat command connections do not stop there. Like I was saying earlier, a cat command is short for concatenate. Concatenating is combining things together in a chain or a series, which is the other major use of a cat command. It'll combine files together. And I think this concept of concatenation relates to friend in a few ways. First of all, the tail of hell. Connected to friend and perfect example of something that is concatenated as shit. But second of all, and the thing that I've latched onto a bit more, I think the concept of concatenation of things combined together relates to friend's nature as a mirror of endogamy. Because I think friend being the cat version of endogamy has gone largely undiscussed. Mostly because no one knows what the fuck to make of it. But I think the Eram fight in Chapter 3 gives us reason to believe that friend is multiple cats. Or at least it can split into multiple cats, right? That's why there are so many little friendlings during that fight. And I think that's the best explanation as to why it takes the same form as it takes the same form as endogamy. Not necessarily because it's an amalgamate or anything, but just because it's just like endogamy. It's unclear how many cats this is. It's a concatenation of cats. And let me tell you, that would be such a cool fucking name reveal to rival endogamy. Either concatenate or concateny or concatenation, something like that. That would be fucking sick, dude. But yeah, I think that's all I got on the cat command thing. Again, people who are more familiar with Linux and this whole concept, please let me know if I'm just completely off base here. Truly, this entire concept is based on me Googling, like, how do cat relate to computer? So, you know, I'm open to criticism, is all I'm saying. Well, I've pretty much taken you through the whole theory now. A little bit of a shorter one today, but it was pretty simple in the end. But while we're talking about friend, I just want to ask a last question here. While I'm proposing that friend and the tail are different consciousnesses entirely, I have to question why we are so sure that they're tied together. Like, it is basically canon to us. I can't remember the time I saw a piece of fan art of friend without the tail on it. And the entire reasoning for why we think friend has the tail, in case you've forgotten, and I don't blame you if you've forgotten, because this has just been well-established fanon for so long at this point, it's like, why would you even need to remember it? But it's all based on Cat Petter's information from the Spampton sweepstakes. Like, there is virtually nothing in-game tying them together. It's all in the sweepstakes, which Toby has stated to be not canon. And I'm not saying the sweepstakes is useless, right? Like, clearly the sweepstakes has foreshadowed stuff that's happened in-game. But the sweepstakes puts so much emphasis on this franchise, Cat Petters, that has been referenced in-game. Like, I just checked the text dump, it's been referenced 4 times, and 2 of the 4 times, it's not even the game, it's a movie that's been referenced. And, you know, we're only halfway through the game. I'm not saying it couldn't become important down the road, but isn't it possible that Cat Petters was just being used as a vehicle to foreshadow other things? Because the sweepstakes ties Cat Petters to Spampton and Peepus, and to the Eggman, and to Friend, and, like, are we really betting that it's all gonna come down to Cat Petters? Because look, I don't want to be the one who has to say it, but the biggest piece of evidence that people use to tie friend to the tail of hell is that the tail of hell is made out of circles and Cat Petter's cats are made out of circles. And friend isn't made out of fucking circles, man. We've brainwashed ourselves into thinking that when we finally see Friend, he's going to be made out of circles. And we've already seen Friend, and he's not made out of circles. And he doesn't have a tail. He doesn't have a tail. We've seen Friend, and he doesn't have a tail. But are you going to tell me that it would have been too obvious if Toby showed him with a tail already? What would have been too obvious? We all believe he has a tail already, and we still don't know shit about him. Yeah, Cammy's washed, your goat is washed, whatever. I don't care. I don't care anymore. One could argue I perhaps lost my cool there. In the end, I still do lean toward Friend having the tail. I mean, I think the evidence is compelling, and a few of the arguments I use in this video actually depend on Friend having the tail, so I don't even really know what I'm doing arguing this point. I guess all I'm trying to say is, like, I think the way that it's essentially seen as canon in this fandom should be challenged. And if there is like a situation where friends running around separate from Gaster's mouse, I wouldn't be that surprised. But also imagining the mouse connected to friend and imagining like, so imagine Gaster is like looking through friend's eyes, like on his computer screen, right? And then using his mouse because it's attached to friend. Like the mouse wraps around to friend's front side, and that's how Gaster can see his mouse looking through friend's eye. You know what I'm talking about? Do you see the vision? Maybe that's a little too silly. I don't know. I'm rambling now. This is the end of the video. Well, hey, there's the end of the video. Hope you liked it. Hope you're not too mad about that last part. If you enjoyed and you're not already subscribed, then please consider doing so. There are still several more theories packed away in my brain I want to get out before Chapter 5, if you can believe it. And if you really liked it, please consider checking out my Patreon, which makes all these videos possible. For as little as 3 smackers a month, you could get access to early videos, end-of-video shoutouts and drawings. Stick around to see what those look like. Monthly Q&As where I doodle the answers, and you know, whatever else ends up on there. Sometimes I just post some shit. Anyway, that's the Patreon plug. I also just wanted to say thank you. The support on the channel's been really great lately. Toilet Theory got to number 17 hyped. What the fuck was that? So I just wanted to say I'm grateful for all you little freaks out there. I love you. And I wanted to say that I got plans for the channel this year. Things are happening, so maybe in the next month look out for something else that's not a theory. Anyways, let's do the Patreon shoutouts now. First of all, on screen now are the Freaklets. We've gotten to the point where I can no longer read everyone on the lowest tier aloud anymore because there's so many of you, but I truly could not do it without you guys. I genuinely could not. Thank you so much. Next are the Little Freaks, including MomoSweetPeach, Lady Edekin, Juicimated, Nova Deluxe, Mothbites, Ellie is Gay, Exori, The Awesome GN, Leo, Bullet, Saturn, Fossil Hunter, Totally Human Productions, Weirdo's World, The Witch of Art, Mesmer, Maycat, Robert Rock, RO83RT, or maybe that's just pronounced Robert, I don't know, Vortex, Pain, The Gwankster, Good Soft Gay, Director Kate, Loom, Bradley the Radley, HLO, Axolofa, Mechalus, Catherine Turner, and Oofsker. Thank you guys so much. And next up are the Average Freaks, including Muffin, Spookow, Cracked Vinyl, I always mess up your name, Minnal Orapine, King Clownbot, Ein Uteranus, Drift Wood, Lime Soda, Claire Duckett, Shake P, and KDG. Thank you guys. And next are the Huge Freaks, including Marshall, Gay Dad, Sour Puss, Shiny Gem, Cinnabar, and Tori OK! Thank you guys so much, and also, now including your headshots, your profiles here that I drew. I hope you like them. And last but not least, thank you to my one and only true freak, Tybee Fitzhugh. Thank you for your endless generosity, and I hope you love your full-body drawing of Sans Undertale. As well as a hearty thank you to everyone on the Joke Tier Hall of Fame scene here. The Joke Tier doesn't exist anymore, but it felt wrong not to give some acknowledgement to the people who committed to that bit. Well, it's been a pleasure, everybody. I guess I'll see you next month with maybe even 2 videos. Who knows? Love ya. Mwah.